Good day. Back in the year 2009, I reviewed AVP2 for the very first time. At that time, it was retro. Now, in the space future of 2024, it is a holy relic of a bygone age. But is AVP2 all it's cracked up to be? Is it truly a holy relic? Or has time dimmed its luster? Well, let's fire it up and find out.
Aliens vs. Predator 2 was developed by Monolith Productions and co-published by Sierra Online and Fox Interactive and released to the PC on October 30th, 2001. 23 years ago. It would later get an Mac version, and that would be released on July 23rd, 2003. Took you long enough, Mackie boys. I picked up the game from a local Target in 2002. This was truly a next-gen experience. You gotta remember, I personally started playing first-person shooters literally the year the first true first-person shooter came out. To go from Wolfenstein 3D to this was nothing short of mind-blowing. Not only did the game look amazing, but it was super bloody advanced to the point where modern games fall short of what this game lets you do. Aliens vs. Predator 2 is a first-person shooter and features 3 giant single-player campaigns where you play as the really bad hombres, the Colonial Marines. You can also play as the Yachtcha, you know him, you love him, the Predator. And finally, you can play as the Midnight Black Beast from Beyond the Stars, the Xenomorph. AVP2 completely revamps all 3 factions and fixes pretty much all the issues present in the earlier Rebellion development first-person shooters. However, player speed in all 3 campaigns has been drastically reduced, and each faction now has much more realistic movement speed. I generally prefer AVP1's movement speed, as it makes things a little more frantic, but I get why Rebellion slowed things down a bit. Each character is fundamentally different from one another, and each will have movement styles and weapons and items that the other won't have. None of the factions have regenerative health, but how you heal is different depending upon the faction you play as. This is a tough game, but the difficulty has been balanced where a quick trigger finger and a quick press of the quick save and load keys will give you a good chance to survive. The Colonial Marine campaign has you take control of a reasonable Marine named Andrew Harrison, continuing the trend of all cool Spec Marines having names that start with an H. He looks a little like Oscar-winning actor Brendan Fraser, and he has access to some sweet hardware like the pulse rifle with underslung grenade launcher, 12-gauge pump-action shotty, smart gun, sniper rifle, sonic electronic ball breakers. I love the core! Actually, the sonic electronic ball breakers are a secondary ammo for the grenade launcher. Oh, and you get a rocket launcher with 2 types of missiles. And a goddamn minigun! Harrison, he be strang. In addition to the arsenal of democracy, you have a few gadgets. A shoulder lamp with a battery bought off of Temu, night vision goggles from Temu as well, and a tablet computer that lets you run a bypass on doors and lockers. Opening up lockers will net you some extra ammo and armor and health. You get a cutting torch for opening doors and boxes that are filled with health and ammo. And you finally get some flares that I honestly never used once. In the game, you're gonna need all the guns you can get because you're gonna be fighting a bunch of bloody Xenomorphs. They will not be quite as fast or as agile as they were in AVP1 for PC, but they make up for that in durability. Where before you could blow them away in just a few hits, now you gotta pour it on. And thankfully, they still come in huge numbers. Later on, you gotta fight something even worse. A species so vile that they screw themselves over for a percentage. You gotta fight humans. They can hit hard, and the Flammenwerfer guys are the worst. The game features a few boss fights, some with humans and some with aliens and predators. The predator fight is kind of boring, and the bastard is a bullet sponge, but the rest are really fun and challenging. The Predator is a member of the 1% and is an entitled bastard. He has his social climbing minions bring him weapons in the field, and I wonder if someone fetches his slippers for him too. You get all the awesome predator weapons. The wrist blades are improved from the previous game, and now both heavy and light attacks will do damage. You get a combi stick, and it makes you bloody death incarnate. It has 2 attacks, an overhead chop, and a sweep. You get a net gun, but unlike in Predator 2, it will not kill enemies, but instead just incapacitates them till they escape on their own? Fancy boy, you probably shouldn't have got the Temu net launcher. dumbass. Every erg of energy had to be husbanded in the previous game, but here you have a device that fills it up, and believe me, you're gonna need to be doing that, cause pulse rifles hurt, and you're gonna need to be using your medicomp a lot, and it uses a crap ton of energy. You got your plasma caster, and it's pretty weak like it was in the previous game, and it's not really worth using most of the time. Your smart disc is also kinda crap too, but the spear gun, now that is a kick-ass weapon. If you shoot enemies in the bunts, it will kill them in one hit, and you can retrieve spears. It also has a close-range shotgun attack, but avoid it as you don't want to waste those precious spears. You will get a new Predator pistol, and in this game, it's just as shitty as it was in the previous one. When playing as the Predator, you will need to use two strategies. When fighting humies, you gotta stay cloaked, as humans will shred you, and later when you face combat synthetics, those guys are no joke as they have smart guns. When taking on humies, you'll want to use your spear guns to eliminate heavies, and then close in with your melee. Xenos are a whole nother story. They can see through your cloak, cause yeah, this is not the weak baby Xeno from Alien Isolation. These guys can see in the dark and through bended light, and a desk most assuredly will be not good enough to hide you from their might. When the Xenos attack, you gotta run backwards and strike with your combi stick. The game will keep track of how many heads you cut off, and every time you slice a head, the Predator will let out a loud yell. Or if you shoot one in the head with the spear gun, he'll let out a sinister laugh. Yeah, Pretty Boy might be spoiled, but at least he knows how to have a good time. As the Predator, you will have a hacking tool that just destroys a circuit board? I guess that's how hacking works. I mean, the files are in the computer after all. You also get a super jump, meaning that in addition to slicing both faces and computers, you gotta jump around. And the Predator levels have great environmental challenges. Like the Marine, you get a few boss fights, and they are all pretty bloody excellent. The Xenomorph has been dramatically improved from the previous game. The levels are not super bloody confusing, nor do they loop around on themselves, and there's also much more for you to do in them. The standard claw swipe returns, as does the head bite, but the tail attack is different. Now you stun enemies with it. You get a leap attack that kinda makes no sense. When you leap at a human, you do so much damage that it makes them explode! I guess this is some kind of balancing. You see, you heal by eating of the flesh. And I guess if you just leapt at a human, it would make it too easy to heal, I guess? There are also some context-sensitive doors you can tear open, and since you are a Xenomorph, you can hack. Or can you? You can hack a computer by hacking it with your claws! And somehow that percussive hacking makes computer do thing. This is by far the best of the Alien campaigns, as it is legitimately fun. You got a couple boss fights, and when you go toe-to-toe against the Predator, that's when this game gets good. This is without a doubt one of the best first-person shooter experiences of all time, and without a doubt, it is one of the greatest sequels ever made. But is it better than AVP 99/Classic 2000? That's a harder question to answer. I still prefer the faster pace of the previous game, but man, AVP 2 brings so many great things to the table that I gotta say that each game is worthy of the title greatest of all time. If you were born in 2002 and thus missed this game, you gotta head over to AVP Unknown's webpage and get it legally. Once you finally boot this game up, you'll see why all these old bastards keep singing its praises. Graphically, this game was bloody amazing in 2002. Yes, it has aged a bit, but like a fine big titty MILF, that aging is no bad thing. This game marked the dividing line between the old world and the new. That 1 year time difference between the year 2000 and 2001 saw a sea change in graphical fidelity. These 3D models might look kind of basic today, but at least they weren't the raw jank of late 90s polygons. Textures were, and still are, really detailed. Hell, you could see individual words on the uniforms. This was a major leap forward in graphics technology, and for the youths today, even y'all can't mock it. Until they start to move. Oh man, that animation. Things are really stiff, and the walk cycle has characters waddling like they just spent 6 months at an all-you-can-eat buffet. but these are minor issues that can be ignored in the face of the excellent cinematic presentation. We got a bunch of cutscenes in this game, and they are all in-engine and look amazing, and are really bloody complex and help tell a very awesome narrative. The levels still hold up, even today, and are huge. Just look at the size of this outdoor area. And remember, this game came out in 2001, less than a decade after Wolfenstein 3D. Sound is great. The game has nice and creepy atmosphere, and the weapons all sound right except for the pulse rifle. It has mostly the right sound, but it has been tweaked a little bit, and I kinda don't have a problem with it, but it'd be nice if it actually sounded like the real pulse rifle back in Aliens. VA work is not quite cinematic quality, but all the voice actors turn in some good performances. The music is present, but nothing stands out other than the awesome Predator theme that plays in a few boss fights. Controls for the game are excellent, and I still use the default AVP controls when I play other FPSs with the mouse and keyboard. The game is pretty stable, although there are still some graphical glitches here and there that have not been fixed since 2001, and weirdly enough, despite this game having those issues, it can still run on a modern PC and even the Steam Deck. There does exist a way to play it in modern screen resolutions. Enter AVP Unknown. See, fans have kept the multiplayer alive along with the rest of the game, and thus I recommend checking out the AVP Unknown page, as it will allow you to download a master server patch among other utilities. AVP Unknown has a utility to let you play the game in modern screen resolutions and with an aspect ratio fix as well. Needless to say, the members of that team are truly disciples of the machine god. Thanks to them, I've been able to play this game multiplayer for the first time in over a decade. Before the master server patch, you had to use a program called Game Ranger, and that never worked quite right, and the lag was a killer. AVP2's multiplayer is just as fun as the previous game's multiplayer. We got a shit ton of maps, weapons, and game types, and now we've got character classes for all three factions, each with their own strengths and weaknesses, and if you get enough points as the alien, you can become a queen and really wreck shit up. Not only did we have a great single player and multiplayer, they even made sure all the menus and loading screens were top bloody tier. The menus are animated and the font is excellent. When you select your character, you got a 3D animated model for each, and after you select a character, the difficulty selection is unique for each too, and each character has their own loading logo, and you better believe the Marine's pulse rifle loading screen is animated and has an animated ammo counter. This was an attention to detail that I would go on to expect from every game afterwards, but sadly, pretty much every game would leave me disappointed. Now, if you thought all that was good, now we gotta get into the story. The narrative for Alien vs. Predator 2 is extremely complex and is novel in quality. What you got here is an interconnected narrative where all three characters influence each other's story. Not only that, but as you play each campaign, more and more of the narrative gets revealed. Not only that, but you find documents in each campaign that shed even more light as to what's going on. And not only that, when you start each mission, you get lore dumps when you get new objectives. The game pulled out all the bloody stops when it came to literally everything, and has more bloody content than most games, no matter the era. You can choose any character you want at any time you want, and each character has their own self-contained story to tell, but to understand the entire narrative, you will want to start with the Marine campaign. You start the game on board the Costanoga class starship Verloc. You play as Andrew Harrison, aka Frosty. He is a tech dude with a heart of gold and is the main hero of the game. We get an Alien-styled intro where members of the squad get introduced, and they have some decent character. Frosty the Rifleman has a buddy named Duke, and they will rib each other from time to time. The commanding officer has a name that was normal then and kind of funny now. We got a one, Colonel McCain. Not sure if the devs thought that name sounded cool, or if they named it after Senator John McCain. He would later rise to fame when he decided to run for president in 2008. The plot begins more or less like you would expect. The colony world of LV-1201 has gone dark, and you've got to investigate. Since this was written by nerds and not bros, McCain implies that there are more Marines than we see, and he knows that he's short-staffed and that they need to dig in and wait for an actual regimental combat team to show up. The whole game has a few nods to Aliens, but there are no member berries to be found, and the game goes its own way in terms of narrative. On the way down to the planet, the dropship gets caught in a storm and has to land far from their destination. And it's up to Frostdelicates to reconfigure the energy matron or whatever. You immediately get separated from your bros, and for the first few minutes of the game, you just go through deserted corridors as you go to fix the automated traffic control software. It builds tension and shows that the devs had restraint. On LV-1201, there are two installations. The one you're going through is called the Primary Operations Complex. There is a science facility called the Pods that you gotta get to. Weyland-Yutani is on LV-1201 doing arcane and downright evil experiments, and as you would imagine, they got a little out of hand. Since this is the cyberpunk future of the 23rd century, Weyland-Yutani also uses convict labor to build the facilities and to do grunt work. Eventually, you gotta perform an arcane rite of the machine god and bring up the POC security, and in so doing, you unleash the Xenomorph menace. Man, this is some good gameplay. You're trapped in tight corridors, and there are so many bloody Xenos you gotta fight. This sets the stage for what will be an epic Xenoblasting experience. Unlike the previous game, though, the narrative is not merely a background detail. Everything has an explanation, and the game even keeps consistent time with itself. And each campaign will take place both before and during the others. The Marines actually arrive late to the party, as the events in the POC start up in the Alien campaign. Eventually, Frosty secures an APC and rescues his bros, but his sexy female sergeant gets kidnapped and you gotta go rescue her. You got some great creepy environments, but alas, you get to her too late. For a game from 2001, Frosty's 3D model does a great job conveying his sense of loss. Next, you help your dudes make it to the pods. When you get there, you meet up with the leader of the LV-1201 operation, Dr. Eisenberg, and his security chief, General Rykov, great mother Russian leader of the Iron Bears mercenaries. They both act super suspicious, but we're all supposed to be one big happy. Frosty gets knocked out by a hot Russian babe, because he inadvertently heard some info that he shouldn't have, and well, Frosty also got her boyfriend killed, because you see, when he brought up the security system in the POC, it took down the pod security for some reason. Never go low bid, people. Pay your software engineers. Otherwise, you're gonna regret it. Just look at what happened in Jurassic Park. Anyway, she dumps you in a cell to rot, but thanks to another prisoner, you're able to break out, and then you show the jumped up Rent-A-Cops why you call the Marines if you absolutely positively need something destroyed. You face a bunch of corpo troops, a few bred aliens, and finally take on a mech. Frosty meets a hot Asian babe, and she will become a voice for the radio connection. She helps you escape the pods and has you get evidence to expose all the company's dark secrets. After this, you gotta rescue your bros as they have been led down to the main Xenomorph hive and left to die. You eventually make it to the entrance to the hive and don a powered exoskeleton called Alice. So that's what she feels like when she's 10 feet tall. You got a bunch of good guns, and you gotta lay waste to the Xenomorph hive and fight through the pilot ruins. That's what this game calls the space jockeys from Alien, later to be renamed engineers. Ugh. Anyway, you get some good lore and you finally face down the alien queen. Sadly, Alice doesn't make it and you gotta fight her on foot. The queen battle is pretty bloody awesome. The arena is just beautiful. It shows off all those next-gen graphics. She has her little helpers, but they will all fall before your crayon-eating might. You rescue your bros and head out to try and save Frosty's sexy girlfriend. Oh, and I thought there were no females in gaming. Ugh. Well, sadly, Frosty is gonna get blueballed because she sabotages the pod's nuclear reactor and blows herself and the pods to Kingdom Come. So, in the span of a couple of days, Frosty has lost both of his girlfriends. Harsh, man. He and his Marine buddies escape to eat crayons another day and make sure that Weyland-Yutani has to pay a $10 fine. The end. The Predator story has you play as a side villain where you are a predator formerly known as Prince. Like, this dude is totally a spoiled asshole. All his peons give him weapons, and I'm surprised they don't just pull his trigger for him, but whatever. he shows up before the Marines and gets to having fun at the working man's expense. This is a story where you are the villain, and General Rykov is more or less the hero. You are only there to kill people and wreck shit up, and Rykov is trying to stop you. I mean, yeah, Rykov works for an evil corporation, but you're just a spoiled dick that wants to kill people. The character of General Rykov is given a bunch of expansion in the Predator campaign. He fought the Predators as a younger man and survived, but he was heavily wounded and now has a spinal injury that pains him to this day. As you play as the Predator, the dude is trying his best to keep his Iron Bears alive, and you keep killing them, bastard. The Predator hunting bros get captured by Rykov, and you gotta try and rescue them, but you get captured. Fancy Boy here is such a lazily shiftless, good-for-nothing nobleman that he needs the two other campaign characters to help him break out. Inadvertently, though, a neat convergence point for all three campaigns. You break out of the pods and then try to go phone home. After you take on a queen, you sadly then defeat General Rykov. I actually felt bad when Rykov's buddy, Ivan, who sounds oddly American for some reason, bought it. There's a great scene where the surviving Iron Bears want to help Rykov, and they say they're not going to let him die, but he sends them away anyway, thus making Rykov the most worthy of all prey. Too bad he's taken down by a stupid prince. The epilogue for this campaign tells us that Dunya, one of Rykov's most trusted lieutenants, and the female who bashed poor Frosty in the head, made it off planet with a few other Iron Bears, and that they went on to kidnap a few Weyland-Yutani scientists. I wonder why they did that. Now, the Alien campaign is no slouch in the writing department either. In the Alien campaign, you are the game's ultimate villain, and you put the entire game into motion. This is one of the very few games where you get to play through the entire Xenomorph lifecycle, and the writers were smart and made the people in the game smart. The intro cutscene shows all the screw-ups it would take for a foul facehugger to escape, although, man, that's a weak-ass box. As a facehugger, you gotta stealth around, and everyone has Far Cry laser vision. Eventually, you facehug a dude that was a dick to everyone, and you ambush him in his quarters while he's fapping to corporate fans. Next, you gotta burst out onto the scene. They sadly couldn't license Hello My Baby, Hello My Honey, Hello My Ragtime Gal, but you can sing and dance to the Dance of the Dead! Go Iron Maiden! More stealth, and finally you get to pull an Alf, you eat some cats to bulk up into a full Xeno. You set to slaughtering everyone and utterly wrecking the primary operations complex. A mass murderer is you! As this is going on, you learn more about Dr. Eisenberg. Dr. Eisenberg faced the Xenomorphs in his past and was traumatized by them. Although, that's a bit of an understatement. See, his crew was killed by Xenos, and he had to go Hannibal Lecter on their corpses. He was rescued, and then later given command of the research labs on LV-1201 for some reason. You slaughter everyone at the pods, and eventually go in search of the Empress. Bloody simp. At the end of that journey, you take down Jesse Eisenberg for his terrible Lex Luthor role, and also the fact that he experimented on humans, but whatever. The game ends with Dr. Eisenberg being revealed to be a synthetic, and he is still alive, but glued to the Empress's wall like she's bloody Jabba the Hutt or something. This is a bloody dark fate for Eisenberg. I mean, yeah, he killed a lot of people, but even the impy from 40K would say that's dark. The epilogue for the Alien campaign sets up the sequel. It implies that the Iron Bear survivors are going to use the marine data to restart the Xenomorph experiments. Will Frosty finally get to go out on a date with Dunya? Will the Xenomorphs finally be stopped once and for all? Find out never. There would never be a direct sequel to this game, and Monolith would never make another AVP game. There would be a prequel to this game that came in the form of an expansion pack called Primal Hunt. It featured Dunya as the protagonist and even got a little nudity. You had a predator that got frozen for a few hundred years, and a pred alien that was birthed from that predator. For some reason, people hated on it both then and now. It has the same great storytelling and gameplay, so I don't get it. After that expansion pack, AVP would go back to Rebellion, and while AVP 2010 is pretty good, it was a mere shadow of what this game was as it came out during the bro dude era of gaming. And now, as of 2024, when this video was going up, it's been 14 years since we had that game. And while I would like a new AVP game, I fear that it would be poorly written and developed tripe like most games these days. As it is, AVP 2 is still one of the very best first-person shooters of all time, and one of the very best Aliens vs. Predator games ever. And hell, the multiplayer even showed up as an arcade game in Dark Angel. Jessica Alba forever!
If it's been a long, long time since you journeyed to LV-1201, it's time to head over to AVP Unknowns and get that screen utility and also the master server patch, and remember why the early 2000s was truly the greatest era in gaming. And so, I am General Lotz, wishing you good AVP 3, I guess, and good AVP SNES, or whatever makes you happy.
If you enjoyed this video, please consider subscribing, and please consider leaving a like or a comment, as the algorithm desires your soul. And I want to thank all those fans who have supported this channel, both past and present.